have in front of me a 4-channel AHD or analog high definition DVR. Basically it's a professional level DVR. It's a huge new innovation in the area of analog CCTV, because what it's offering now for the first time is true HD picture quality. So one of the fantastic features on this particular DVR is backward compatible, so it can be used with 960H or we'll say older 700 TVL cameras, for instance. And it simply adjusts in terms of recording things like that to allow for that. AHD is going to be massively popular, we believe, simply because it's building on existing skill sets. So if you come along, we'll say, in terms of the cameras, in terms of the connectors, in terms of the cables, all the rest of it here, everything that's in the market existing will work with this unit. And in terms of the setup on it, the skill set isn't nearly as advanced as people need, we'll say, for IP cameras, which would be comparable, we'll say, in terms of the picture quality range they can give. So the format of this video is, I'm just going to give an overview of exactly what comes in the box. We'll take a detailed look at the inputs and outputs on the actual DVR itself, and then we'll give an overview of the menu structure and a demonstration of it. We have it set up with a full AHD camera here as well, okay? So what we have is, we have the outer box that comes in with a user manual and a CD here, which is just with the software, etc. for it. We have a SATA cable here, and we also have a means of mounting an internal hard drive on it. So up to 3 terabytes is the max size that we've tested this on. And we have a power unit here, so it's 3-pin plug and 12 volts, 3.5 amps. And we have a remote control here, and also a set of AAA batteries. And basically then we're on directly to the main event here, which is the DVR. What I'm going to do at this point, I'm just going to come to the front of the desk. We just look at the main features here. So the first thing on the left hand side we'll notice there's a USB port here. We could use this obviously for adding external hard drive, extracting recordings, or updating the firmware. We have an enter button and arrow up and down, left and right for accessing the menus. And then what we have is basically a duplication of all the functionality we'll find on the remote or within the menu systems via mouse that we'd have here. And what we can do is we can just go through all these things, the zoom, bringing up the various menus, things like that. That's handy, we'll say, if you come back to the DVR and you can't find the mouse or the remote isn't available. I'm just going to turn the unit around at this point. Just look at the back of the unit here. So we'll say in terms of the triggers that we have here, I'm just going to tilt this slightly forward, might work slightly better first. So what we have here is we have sections here for both relays, alarm, and also for the RS 485s, which we'd obviously use for controlling PTZs, etc. Okay, and we can see a breakdown given, we'll say, of the common ground, the relays and the alarms here, which is possible to configure. In terms of the audio input, we'll see that we have 4 audios in. So each of the different cameras, if we wish, they can have an audio input on it, fed directly in here. And we have an audio out here as well. And then what we have is video in, just a straightforward BNC connection on it, and a main BNC out. In terms of how to run it directly to a monitor or a TV, we'd have a choice of using either this VGA connection or using a HDMI connection here. And we also have an IR connection here. So what we can actually do is we can have an IR lead here. So you can have this cabinet securely locked away, and we could be using the mouse directly or the remote control directly onto an IR sensor onto it. What we have here then is we have a USB port, and we also have a LAN connection here as well. So it's just duplicating the USB that's on the front. And then we have the power input here. So what we have in terms of, if we want to access the menu via the mouse, we just right click here, we can see we bring the menus up. So you can bring up to 4 screens at one time. We've only 2 cameras added here. Or what we could do is we could have an inset like this, or more commonly here, we're just focusing on a single camera. What we could do here is we have the main menus here, automatic sequencing, backupping, configure, which we're going to go into in some detail now. We can do a time search, we can do systems logs, we can do playbacks, PTZs, and also what we could do here is zoom and freeze video, etc. The main thing I'm going to do here now is I'm just going to come along, I'm going to click into the configure menu here. And what we have here is we have a main system setup here. So we'll just click into the system setup, and it's just looking for the password here. So it's just basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6. And we just do return. And we're just going directly in here. So we can just see the main things here. and we have the ability, we'll say, for automatic reboots and things like that. And that can be handy in terms of people just want to flush the system and kick it out. Or sometimes what you can actually do is you could log in remotely, turn on the automatic reboot for later on that night, and get the machine, we'll say, or the DVR, if there was some problem with it, to come along and just reboot itself remotely. And that can be quite advantageous. So if we come along here, we'll say we could go to the event sequence here and what to do in different scenarios. So in terms of video loss here, we come along and say we can enable it or disable it, and what the event will be. And you have the various things. Do you want to trigger a buzzer? Do you want to send a message? And who do you want to send a message to in terms of an email, things like that? Okay. And we can have the same then for motion detection. They'll have a sensor here as well for the various sensors that are input here, and the system here as well, whether we want to be able to set it up to the mail systems on it again. Okay, so we have a general a high level of configurability on it here, and that once again is great. Like, we could have a thing that if a certain thing happens, we could send a signal through a relay, we'll say, to open the gate or do something like that. What we have here is a record setup on it. So we have the continuous record here. So if we're going to be recording here, we can come along and we can say, well, look, we have this camera here, and it's 720p 25. So it's basically our high AHD camera here, and we can see the camera beside is only a 700 TVL, and it's a different recording setting on it. So this here is the resolution is 1280 by 720, where this is 944 by 576. Okay, we can actually come along here and we can click directly into the camera, and we can start making adjustments here in terms of sharpness, or we could adjust the brightness, we'll say, over and back like this, and really adjust it around. I don't want to save those settings there, but if I did, I could by just clicking the correct thing, and I just hit the X button to come back out. In terms of then of, we could choose to save it at a lower resolution here, or we can choose to, instead of going for full 25 frames, we go for, let's say, a much lower level of frames, and the picture quality as well. The big impact of that, of course, is the amount of storage space that you're going to be using here. AHD is gathering a lot of information, so it's going to use a lot more storage, we'll say, than conventional cameras that are a lot lower resolution on it. When we have the scheduled recordings here, we can just come along, we can tick the various boxes, we can repeat down along, and we can set up certain schemes. And what we can also do here is have a holiday set up as well, so it's different on certain periods, say we're heading off for periods. So it's very, very configurable again. Okay, if we come down, we'll say, to the system information here, we can see we've actually added on a 500 gig hard drive, I think, on this particular one, of which 403 is still free. Okay, recording away, and we just have the basic setup on that. And then what we have in here is the configurability for the cameras itself. So you can see we can access each one of them individually. We can do things like private masking to block out certain areas. Or what we could do here is the pellicle, it's set up in terms of the PTZs, and we could set each one up on a different setting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll say up to 4, of course, 4 camera system here. In terms then of the storage thing here, gives you the option here to be able to come along and format the hard drive, etc. And also how long do we want to preserve the recordings before we allow re-recording over what's been there already. And then the network thing here is basically be setting up your IP address, etc. So we can just go through that entire thing. We've separate videos covering all that topic, but that's basically there. And then what the final one here is, you can come along here and you can just set up different user accounts, and in each one you can give what level of accessibility you're going to have. So you could limit, we'll say, who has the admin access, and then give it, and then we can set passwords for each person as we go through. And then, as we mentioned earlier, if there's certain triggers, we can have certain people being made aware of different events that's happening on it. So that's fundamentally it. I'll just exit back out here now, and we'll just go back to our main screen. So overall, we'll say we found really good reaction, let's say, both when we've demonstrated in training courses we've run here at Free TV to show all the advantages of AHD compared to where it's gone previously. Really, we'll say where we're going to find it is in two ways in terms of where is demand for this DVR. The first thing is where people are putting in a new install, and what they're doing is they're putting in a mix of they want very high resolution and easy to configure DVR, which this is obviously offering. But what they want to be able to do at that point is they want to be able to come along and have some very high resolution cameras, maybe in particular areas, but also maybe to save an expense, they want the ability to have lower resolution cameras elsewhere. And a system like that is completely configurable here in terms of what AHD offers. And the second big market for it really will be where we have somebody who has a DVR existing cameras, and what they want to do is upgrade part of the system. So they'll simply come along, upgrade to this DVR, all their existing cameras will simply reconnect back in again, and what they can do is they can add in new AHD cameras as they go, so they're sort of future-proofing their investment on it. AHD is obviously coming in at a higher price than what's the other professional cameras that went prior to this, but that's just it's sort of an evolution. It's sort of a cutting edge right now. As time goes on, it'll probably become much more the standard. So it's part of a wider range of AHD cameras and DVRs that we have. We have an 8 camera version of this, for instance, and we have a lot of bullet domes, etc. that will go with this. And interesting, a lot of the AHD cameras we have are both backward compatible as well, so you can choose to use them on newer or older systems. So that's it anyway, an overview of the 4 camera AHD DVR.